this, but thrive through it and afterwards. And so that's one of the reasons we wanted to get together. Now that we've done sort of a Zoom walkthrough, and feel free to send me a note, dropping down the box in the chat box to Carley if you have a question about anything Zoom related. Let's get started. So today is really about understanding state and federal aid packages that are available immediately to businesses in New Jersey and beyond, and how you can really take action on those aid packages right now. And so we're really privileged to be joined by a group of experts, and we're going to ask them to unmute and present video when they're in fact speaking. I'm going to run through sort of our program and then kind of jump back to the start. So we'll begin with New Jersey state aid, especially because one of the grant applications opened Friday and it is active. We also heard that one of the New Jersey EDA loan applications opens on April 13th. So we wanted to talk with you about that. I'll be joined by Melanie Willoughby, who's the Executive Director of the New Jersey Business Action Center. Her colleague Don Newman might be chiming in on this call as well to answer questions. So after Melanie and I walk through some of the information she has, and if you got the email I sent this morning, there is a New Jersey EDA deck. It was a presentation. Melanie's going to kind of take parts of what she presents from that. There's also a New Jersey Business Action Center document. It was like 7 or 8 pages long. Melanie is going to speak to that as well. So that will be the state portion. At about 10:25, 10:30, we'll pause. We'll take questions. Please put your questions through the chat feature. Then we're going to shift to federal aid, the CARES Act, and our very own Montclair's Kimberly, who's editing and a friend to our center at the university. She's going to be in conversation with Jen Bobal, who I see at the top of my screen at least, who's a local business owner, Jon Schnur, who is going to give us the nonprofit perspective. Nonprofits are part of these grant and loan packages, so it's really important to sort of hear what's available to nonprofits. And then we're also privileged to be joined by J Owens, who's a CPA, who's going to talk to us a little bit about what you need to know from an accounting perspective. Same ask there. Please put your questions in as you go for that portion of the discussion about federal aid, and we'll make sure to get to it. So I think with that, we will begin. And Melanie, I want to ask you to unmute and turn your camera on, or I guess if you're going to say off camera because you're going to walk us through some stuff, that's cool too. But Melanie Willoughby from New Jersey Business Action Center. I think where, my center highlighted 3 of the 6 programs that NJEDA debuted last month. Melanie's going to talk with us a little bit about what you can do to take action immediately, especially because 2 of the programs are now, one is open for enrollment, one's about to be open for enrollment. So Melanie, I will mute and give you the floor.
Thank you very much. And if you don't mind, I'm going to stay without video so that I can go through the programs because you won't see my face really, you'll just see me looking at the materials. So first of all, let me just give you an overview that the New Jersey Business Action Center is a state agency whose purpose is to advocate for businesses. So when we're not dealing with the COVID-19 crisis, we are actually every day helping businesses navigate government. So now we're just helping you navigate government for the COVID-19 crisis. We are in partnership with the EDA and also the SBA to try to deliver programs that are going to be a financial assistance to businesses. So I'm really pleased to hear that you have quite a number of experts who are on the line that can really get in depth on the SBA programs. So I'm going to go over the EDA programs and then some of the information that you can get from the state. So first, let me just emphasize that the most important website that you're going to have at your disposal is the website that was set up by the state, and it is cv.business.nj.gov. This website has all of the information on it for everything EDA, everything SBA, everything for the Department of Labor, everything about which business is essential, which business isn't essential. And so it contains all of the information, and it's all there with articles that you can just download. If you have any questions about any of the articles, there is a chatbot feature. And that chatbot feature is staffed by a live person who is part of the staff of the New Jersey Business Action Center. And there are 16 of them that are there from 8 in the morning till 9 at night, 7 days a week. So you're able to ask those questions. And if we don't have the answer, we will get back to you with the answer. Because as you might imagine, the world is changing very rapidly. And so too are the answers to your questions. So some days things are one way, and the next day it's changed dramatically. And so you have to be able to stay up to date. And that's why checking that website is really, really essential. We get into the EDA programs that were announced over a week ago. And the first one went live on Friday morning at 9 a.m. And they're rolling the programs out in every week so that they're not all being rolled out at the same time. And so that's so they can handle handling the applications. So the first one was the grant program, and that was a $5 million program. And it was a grant program for the industries that have been closed. That program is already subscribed. So all of the applications, essentially they received over 10,000 applications by 10 o'clock that Friday, and the program was closed. However, the EDA has informed me as of this morning that they are still going to take grant applications, but they're only for the future and it's not for now. And so do not expect that if you are just going to apply today, that you would be receiving a grant application, but that you would be essentially sort of investing in a possible grant application acceptance if there more money is going to be put into that program. So as of right now, if you have not applied, you will not be getting money from this first batch of grant applications. So that is the grant program, which closed on Friday. So you can imagine how quickly people were ready to go with that. The next one is the Small Business Emergency Assistance Loan Program, and that application goes live on April 13th. You will be able, at 9 a.m., you will be able to get that loan application on the cv.business.nj.gov website, right there. But what's also there is the Wizard, and the Wizard is a opportunity for you to plug in your information to see what you're eligible for from the number of programs that the EDA is offering. Now, the important thing about the EDA programs is that you can apply for all of them. You, of course, cannot use multiple grant and loan money should you get all of them for the same thing, but you are able to apply for all of them and you could receive them all. So the Small Business Emergency Assistance Loan Program is up to $100,000 working capital for 10 years for businesses with $5 million or less in revenue. It's 0% for years 1 through 5 and 1 to 3% for years 6 through 10. But once again, you must have $5 million or less in annual revenue. You have to have a physical location, commercial location in New Jersey. You cannot be a home-based business. You have to be in existence for at least a year. You must be registered to do business in New Jersey. You have to get a tax clearance from the Department of Labor that you're in good standing. And you must have a minimum credit score of 600 or more for at least one of the grantors as part of the loan. And you must show negative impact of the emergency, whether you were closed, reduced hours, 20% revenue drop. and you must fill out and certify a simplified debarment legal questionnaire. So that is for the loan program, which goes online April 13th, and please use the wizard on the website at cv.business.nj.gov to see what you can, if you can apply for it. So that's the next group of programs, actually, are those, excuse me, that are tied to the local CDFIs. Those are the small micro lenders, is another way of looking at them. And the micro lenders are already out in the in your world, and they already are giving loans and have been always to sort of micro and small size businesses. But the EDA is going to help to buck them up. And they are going to help them to try to bring down the interest rate for those loans. So they're going to provide additional monies to these micro lenders to help them with providing loans to you. So that is another place to go, and there's a list of the micro lenders that are, excuse me, are available, and you can get a list of the micro lenders through your SBDCs. Now, your SBDCs are your small business development centers, and those are still working. They are working remotely because they're mostly tied to our school and universities, but they are still working, and you can go to njsbdc.gov, or is that .org? Don, are you on? Don, anywhere? No, I think it's .org.
Sorry, I was having trouble unmuting. No, it is .gov. SBA.
.gov.
Yep.
Thank you, Don.
No
Don
problem.
is the our small business advocate, and the man who is an encyclopedia of information. Anyway, so it's .gov, and you can click on needing counseling, and it'll tell you where the counseling is available, and you can work with them remotely. And they can help you with those loans which are available now through the micro lenders. So those are the products that are available coming. So the micro lenders is available now. The grants was available, but that's closed, although you could still apply for the future. And the loans don't come available until April 13th at 9 a.m. Now, I know that the SBA does have their products, which are in the marketplace now. And there have been a lot of bumps in the road, shall we say, with businesses applying, but I will let the person who is online to talk about that do so. So what I would like to do, though, is give you a few more things that are really important for overall state government. So the first is that there is a jobs and hiring portal, which is very important, that has been set up by the state government, which is jobs.covid19.nj.gov, jobs.covid19.nj.gov, where over 44,000 jobs have been posted. So it's an employer and employee, potential employee match. So I suggest that that's someplace that you might very well want to take a look. There also is, in the resources I provided, a U.S. Chamber of Commerce guide for small business on the coronavirus, which is a really good resource. I've also provided for you in my Business Action Center materials, all of the guides to the Economic Injury Disaster Loan, Employee Retention Tax Credit, and the Paycheck Protection Program. Also, I think a very important thing is that if you want to report a scammer or a suspected price gouging, is that there is a place for you to go, which is the New Jersey Division of Consumer Affairs. I have provided you with that number and the website. And so there are also, I think, the new federal paid leave requirements and paid sick leave requirements and the unemployment insurance is all very complex. However, the Department of Labor, I have never usually said the New Jersey Department of Labor and outstanding in the same sentence. But now I have to say that they are outstanding because they have put out an amazing FAQ on unemployment insurance, and you can get that at their website at nj.gov/labor. And it's their FAQs on unemployment insurance, because as you know, and that will probably be explained to you later, the federal government now has provided for pandemic unemployment insurance for people who are independent contractors, sole proprietors, gig workers, and it's really important for you to know how to apply for that. There's also a wonderful DOL FAQ on the same website about leave benefits, and one that explains you as a business owner and your unemployment insurance benefits. There's also, I wanted to let you know, the Commissioner of the Department of Labor has explained that we've never had to go through any of this because there's a approximately 500% increase in the online claims. That'll crash any website. And so as a result, please be patient for all of you that are applying and just keep trying. And the commissioner even said, go on at like 2 o'clock in the morning, maybe 4 o'clock in the morning. We're not sleeping anyway, so what difference does it make to go on at that hour of the morning? And so that, I think, is a very, very important point. And so also, the bottom line for everyone is that you are all in this, we're all in this together. And I want you to know that state government has really, is here for you. The Business Action Center is here to answer your questions. You can reach us also by 1-800-Jersey-7 on our call center, which is open from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m., as well as going to our website. And, we're here to answer any questions that you have. And as I said, if we don't have the answers, we'll get them.
Melanie,
thank you.
I'm going to turn to the chat box where we have a couple of questions from folks and just send them your way if you're willing to field them. For folks who just joined, it's Melanie Willoughby and also Don Newman from New Jersey Business Action Center running us through some of the grant and loan programs. One question that came up, it's definitely relevant. What if my business bank doesn't have its application ready? So do you have any more guidance on sort of, banks that folks are working with, maybe not having this, their materials ready yet?
So I'm sure they're talking about the SBA. And I know that you have someone here from the SBA, but I just want you all to know that Al Titone, who is the head of the SBA New Jersey, and I have communicated about the fact that the banks, many of the larger ones are not ready, number one, and number two, are being very cautious in who they will do business with for the PPP and going forward. So many of them will not do business with a small business unless you've already gotten a loan from them in the past, or you have a business credit card with them. And so we recognize that this is an issue, and that originally we felt that from the guidance we had received from the SBA, that this was going to be a smooth flowing, go to your bank, get your loan, and it will all work really well. But the banks are very cautious since the 2008 and are not as willing to be as open to granting the credit. So we don't have a resolution for this yet. The SBA has said it is what it is. There's nothing we can do about it.
Okay. One more question before we switch to SBA and we give the floor to Kimberly and her panel. A question from Gretchen. Is there any program for new business that started in June 2019? So businesses that are less than a year old.
All right, so the businesses that are less than a year old are not going to benefit from anything that the EDA has to offer. So the state program has to be more than a year. But there will be programs that the SBA has to offer. So I think why don't we go to that panel and then you can hear about what those are.
Okay.
And then I can always come back because I'm staying on. So I'm always happy to answer any other questions.
Okay, great. Melanie, thank you. The websites, the URLs, and also the 1-800-Jersey-7 information that Melanie shared, we'll make sure to curate and send out over email to all of you after this. So I was trying to jot these down, but we'll make sure that we get the correct URLs to all of you in follow-up. So let's shift to Kimberly Weisul from Inc. if she can unmute, and also Jen and Tom and John on her panel can unmute, and we will shift to talking about SBA.
Hey, good morning, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us. Before we get going on the federal programs that are available, I just want to answer that one question about the applications. The application, even if your bank is not ready to take it, is available on the Treasury website, and I will get that. I don't have the URL at hand, but I will dig it out and find a way to get it to people, so you can still prepare even if your bank isn't ready. So Carley had asked me to run through the Paycheck Protection Program in particular, and I also want to talk a bit about the economic injury disaster loans. Before we do that, though, I'd like to introduce Thomas Owens, who's a CPA. In addition to these loans, which are getting a lot of press and a lot of attention for good reason, there are also changes in the tax code and when you have to pay your taxes. And instead of waiting for a loan, that's the kind of thing that can help your cash flow right away. So I'd like to ask Tom to talk about those first, just because, as I said, that can help you right away. Any kind of loan program, it's not going to happen tomorrow. So Tom, would you talk about that for a little, please?
Yes, sure. Hey, good morning. So with regard to your taxes, everything has been put off until July 15th. So any taxes that you historically would owe by April 15th, both at the state of New Jersey level or the IRS level, you have now to July 15th. So your tax filing, your taxes are due at that point in time. So that's July 15th. That's all changed. With regard to your tax estimates for 2020, as an added reference, that also does not commence until July 15th. I know historically that was April 15th, in which you would start paying your quarterlies, April 15th, June 15th, and so on and so forth. So again, that launches on July 15th. Kim, your other comment or question?
I just wanted to, isn't there also some deferral available for payroll tax or for the employer part of payroll tax?
Yes, there is. So with regard to your payroll taxes, I'm not exactly sure. I haven't had actually that question. I've had every other question at the moment. But yeah, the payroll tax I know is deferred, I think, until, I'm not actually going to say. I'm going to have to research that while I'm sitting here. I don't have the exact date on that, but I know I have clients who are deferring it until later, probably this summer. It may be later. I keep thinking to myself, it may be September 30th or December 31st, but don't hold me to that until I get more insight on that.
Excuse me, it's Melanie. It's actually until January 1st of 2021.
Yeah, that's why I said December 31st. I thought. Okay. So. Thanks.
Good.
Yeah. And also, speaking of digging out information, somebody has put in the chat the link to the application for the Paycheck Protection Program. So thank you very much. You guys can find that there. So I'm going to talk about this. Some of you probably have researched everything about it, and it may be new to others of you, but this is the $349 billion in federal loan guarantees that have been provided for small businesses. The idea with this loan program is to keep people employed. So what this will pay for is you can apply for up to 2.5 months of payroll, up to 10 million. If your head count stays the same for 8 weeks after you get the loan, and you can show that you actually use the money for head count, then you can get the loan forgiven, right? So it's a loan that can turn into a grant. It means there's a lot of pressure on your bookkeeping and on your accountancy to show how you actually have used the money. But obviously it can be very helpful for small businesses. It's a 2-year loan at 1%. No matter who you get the loan from, the terms of it should not change. So if someone's saying to you, your bank is going to take 3 weeks, but I can get it for you tomorrow, but it's going to be at 5%. No, that's a scam. By law, the terms of the loan should not change. Bank shopping is not supposed to be able to help you here in terms of the terms of the loan. The eligibility for the loans is much broader than for other SBA programs. You need to be under 500 employees. However, if you are self-employed or you are an independent contractor who gets paid on a 1099, you can also qualify for these. These are available to nonprofits, and over the weekend, they just clarified that faith-based businesses can also apply. So it's very broad. The only people who are really left out here on the small business front is that if you have a substantial equity investment, it's going to be much harder for you to get these, and also cannabis companies are going to be cut out. Otherwise, pretty much everyone with fewer than 500 employees is going to be eligible. The other changes, there's no collateral necessary, there's no personal guarantee necessary, you don't have to show that you tried to get credit somewhere else and failed, right? Those are all big changes. Your small business lender that you've already used, maybe for a 7A loan, can get you these, but so can any FDIC insured bank and any credit union. Supposedly, some of the online fintech companies will be able to do this, but we haven't heard anything for sure yet. There's reasons to be a little careful about that. The banks, as we mentioned before, are not really ready for this. The guidance for the first wave of small businesses, so those that had payroll but less than 500 employees, the guidance came late last Thursday. The first day to apply was Friday. Bank of America was one of the few banks that was ready to do it, and we heard that they had 80,000 applications on the first day. To get an idea of the scale of this, in 2019, the SBA guaranteed more than $20 billion in loans in a whole year, like 29 billion, I think. Now they're being asked to do 350 billion in 8 weeks. If your community bank is up to speed, they may be a better bet. As was mentioned before by Melanie, because the banks are getting such overwhelming numbers of applications, they are starting with their own customers, which makes it tough for people who maybe have smaller businesses or ironically have been cash flow positive and haven't needed a loan from a bank. What's going to happen this next week is that 1099s and self-employed people can apply for these same loans. And again, we probably will not get the guidance that will allow the banks to really do this until late in the week. And it's probably going to be another rocky start for that as well. What we are starting to see is people bundling loans. This is legal, right? It is totally illegal for someone to act as an agent or packager, suck up as many loan applications as they can, and then try to sell them as a group to a bank. And the legislation actually even provides a fee schedule for this. But what we're really worried about is that the banks are already overwhelmed. There are a number of places online where people are sucking up as much financial information as they can. And I think that it's very unclear to the people who may be applying for the loans where their information is going. If you give your application or other information to a bundler, do you know what happens to that loan afterward? Will you know that when a bank reviews it and what the decision is? You may not. So if you're not applying directly to a bank, just make sure to read the fine print and know what's going on with your information. It's also always good, even if you're going to apply through an online bundler, get that Treasury application, because for businesses of a certain size, for instance, Treasury is not going to ask for your social security number. Whereas the bundlers, some of them, not all, they're asking for any information they can get, right? Because even if they never make a loan, this is a huge data mining opportunity for them. So please just make sure you know where your information is going and where a loan might eventually come from. I'm happy to answer questions about this or throw them to our panel. That's kind of the high level right now on those paycheck protection loans. Another program which has kind of been overlooked in the sort of hustle to get a PPP loan are these economic injury disaster loans. That was passed about 3 weeks ago now. The application is available online, but like only half of it. The thing about the economic injury disaster loan, and the reason why you should look into it, is that the law says that if you apply for the loan, you're supposed to get the first $10,000 of that loan off the top before a loan decision has actually been made. And if you are declined for the loan, you're supposed to get to keep the $10,000. I don't know how much longer they will be using this program in this way, because the guidance that came out last Thursday for the paycheck protection loans also said that if you had an economic injury disaster loan, it had to be rolled into the PPP. It's based on your credit score. The application, seriously, it takes like 15 minutes. So if you haven't done it yet, you've got nothing to lose, frankly. We have also talked about unemployment assistance. It now runs for 39 weeks, and there's an additional $600 a week in that. That is really changing the calculus together with these PPP loans of, do I try to keep people on and then let the government basically pick up the salary tab for that, and maybe then keep them on the, keep their health insurance going? Or do I put them on unemployment assistance because that's a lot more generous now? Is there a way, if I furlough them instead of laying them off? A lot of conversations with health insurance brokers about, could I keep those people on my health insurance for some period of time? So those are all kind of things to think about. I hope that that is helpful to you. I see a bunch of questions coming in. We definitely will answer those. I'd like to ask Jennifer Bobal, who can introduce herself. She is the owner of a hair salon in town, what her experience has been trying to get assistance for her business, because I think that Jennifer's experience can be instructive for other people who are just beginning this journey. So welcome, Jennifer.
Hi, everyone. So far I have applied for the SBA Economic Injury Disaster Loan, the one that Kimberly was just talking about. I did apply for that on March 31st. I have not heard back about that. I also applied for the New Jersey Small Business Emergency Assistance Grant. That's the one, I believe, it's a grant for up to $5,000. Haven't heard anything about that yet as well. I currently have my SBA Payroll Protection Program request for the application in through Wells Fargo. It's been a little frustrating to be able to get the actual application. So I'm waiting to hear back from that. Basically, like what everybody's saying, it's been a rocky start. I've been in touch with my accountant nonstop, trying to get a lot of information about the changes in that program. And then also, how do I get an application? I did fill out the sample form application just so I have an idea of what I need to get ready. Let's see, what else have I done? I currently have my employees on unemployment. I've temporarily laid them off. And I'm just trying to figure out the best way to go about this. We do have employees on health benefits through our salon. So a lot of questions, like you mentioned, Kimberly, and just what's the right way to go about this to continue being able to keep them on our health plan. That's pretty much where I'm at. You know, I'm learning along the way with everybody, doing a lot of research and watching a lot of webinars.
Jennifer, what has been the most helpful to you in terms of collecting information? Is there anything that you could recommend to people, whether it's been other business owners or something you found online? Is there some way that you would recommend people get up to speed on this?
I've been just going to the SBA site. I've been going to the Chamber of Commerce site. By the way, you guys had a great webinar. I've been talking with several business owners in the downtown Montclair area, really just different accountants that have been relaying any email that I get, I read. I've been signing up through different webinars. But as far as the SBA website and the Chamber of Commerce and the EDA website, I mean, there's a lot of information there.
Awesome. Thank you very much. I just want to address one question quickly that's in the chat that says that a smaller portion of the Paycheck Protection Loan can be used for other expenses outside of paychecks, which is true. It's in the chat, it says it's 20%, it's close, it's 25%. You have to be careful with it because it doesn't cover everything, but it does cover utilities, interest on loans, and a couple other things. So you don't have to use the entire thing for paychecks, although that's what it's intended for. I would love to go to Jon Schnur next. He is the chairman and chief executive of America Achieves. And so I'd love to hear what the not-for-profit perspective is on this, Jon.
Great. And can you hear me now?
I can.
Okay, great. Great. I think the video is not on, but that's fine. My first caveat is do not have detailed expertise on this the way that an accountant would or a lawyer would. So this represents my observations from working with nonprofits who are looking to access these funds. But you should definitely check with a lawyer, accountant, etc. before proceeding in full. So just a few points about nonprofits. One is I think it's very significant that nonprofits were fully included in this, and so that was not going to automatically happen. So any 501c3 organization or faith-based organization, church, can now apply for this, even though it's called a small business loan. Nonprofits are fully included, I think, as people on this call know. Number two, particularly for smaller nonprofits, there are a number of points that I would make to focus on that might not be so different from small businesses, but let me make a few. One is, if you're going to do this, you got to act fast. Banks, some banks have already stopped, have exhausted their resources. Others may soon. And so if you're a nonprofit that hasn't applied for this for a small business, well, you got to be very careful about how you do it. I would just move quickly if you are going to do it. You got to contact a bank and lender, and I think that probably everybody knows that and has looked at webinars to find out where. But I am going to try to send a link with just a list of all the local lenders in the local area you could go to. And I would consult with resources that are geared specifically to nonprofits. I've got two websites that I'll put in this email. One is independentsector.org and one is schusterman.org, SCHUSTERMAN.org. They're very good tailored resources for nonprofits. The last two things I would just say briefly for nonprofits, I'm happy to share more. One is consult with your board. Obviously, as a nonprofit, you've got a board of directors, and it's very important to consult with your board before proceeding. And lastly, this is complicated stuff, even though it may seem straightforward. And so on one hand, you got to move fast to make sure you access the resources. On the other, it is very easy to make mistakes on this. And I think that I would advise before you use any money, you set up an account that would be a separate account just for this funds, and you not use any funds until you've gotten good counsel from an accountant or a lawyer to make sure that you're calculating not just how much you can use for the loan, which is you'll get, but how much is forgivable. And you don't want to make a mistake and assume that you can get an amount forgiven that actually is going to be just available in a loan. So I would move fast, but I would put it in a separate account and not start expending it until you actually have somebody who can look at it. I'm sorry, one last point I'd make. The money will run out fast. So it may be that you apply and that there's not enough in this round. My understanding, there are no guarantees whatsoever, but from what I and others hear from Capitol Hill, seems like there's a decent chance that no guarantees whatsoever, but another stimulus could pass in the coming weeks that could then build on this. And there could be another set of resources available building on this program. And if you weren't fully ready this time or didn't get it, I would just advise taking the time between now and then to be prepared for the possibility that that does pass, and make sure that you take the steps. You analyze it, figure out what you could do. Go, if you don't have an account, you don't have an established relationship with a lender right now, then get yourself a relationship established, because that makes it possible sometimes to access these in ways that if you don't have a relationship, you can't. So if you don't get this time, don't despair, but take time to prepare for what could be another opportunity in a small number of weeks.
Hey, Jon, that is great advice. Thank you very much. I just want to answer a couple questions before we go back to Thomas to talk about the economic injury disaster loans, because these are frankly the same questions that we get at Inc. all the time. I know people are confused about this. Under the Paycheck Protection Program, you are eligible if you are self-employed. It doesn't matter if you're working from home or not. You're also eligible if you're an LLC. The question that is here in the chat that we get all the time is, can you include 1099s in your payroll calculations? You cannot. The idea is that 1099s are able to apply for this on their own. So therefore the business owner can not also sort of apply on their behalf and count that paycheck. So please just be careful about that. The EIDL, that's the economic injury disaster loan, is available for self-employed people as well. And Thomas, you have some experience with that loan program. Could you share that with us, please?
Yeah, sure. I applied for my own, being a sole proprietorship, as a reference to your comments a moment ago. I applied on March 19th. I received an email on March 20th that it was in review. I finally heard back by email from a specific loan officer at the SBA on Wednesday, April 1st. She needed some additional information from me. I supplied that to her immediately. I then had a conversation with her on April 2nd, Thursday. Took about 15 minutes. She was very detailed, very patient, gave me the parameters of it. This is kind of unique information that I'm going to share, but she shared it with me. So I feel, she shared it with me. It's open to everybody, if you will. She gave me my loan formula. So basically it's your gross revenues less your cost of goods sold. In accounting lingo, we call that your gross profit. She took my gross profit. She divided, and that was for the 12 months ended January 31st of 2020. She took that number, she divided by 2, and that was my loan amount. And so she indicated that she asked me if I wanted to accept that full loan amount, but she stated the following with me. She said, before you answer that, let me give you a hint. The hint is that the government may actually, with the EIDL, may forgive it. So with that comment, I immediately accepted the full loan amount. She indicated to me that her supervisor would be getting back to me within a day if that loan amount was accepted or it was going to be adjusted down, if you will. I did receive an email on late Friday afternoon, almost about 5 o'clock, that the loan was accepted. On Saturday morning, I received about 10 emails from the SBA. In short, I had to access their site. I had to download about 10 different documents, sign them, upload about a half a dozen of them to the site to complete part of the application process. So now, and I'm being told from that site that my funds should be available, wired to me within 7 to 10 days. So that kind of gives everybody an idea, time frame wise, from March 19 to, we're speaking of, through Saturday, what was that, April 4th, kind of gives you a time frame. However, my EIDL application on March 19th was measurably different than the EIDL application that, as Kim was sharing, only takes 15 minutes. It does only take 15 minutes. I've probably done it for a number of clients in the past week or so. When I did it, probably took me 45 minutes. So it was a very different application. I don't know exactly how that's going to process for everybody. And when they do hear back, they're going to have to provide them more information. For instance, I had to electronically sign at 4506T, so they had access to my past 3 years worth of tax returns, if you will. So they at least gives you some dynamics time frame wise. Now, I don't know if I got in early, if you will, on March 19th, and the flood is only happening in the past week or so. So that is going to change. I can't comment on that.
That is really, really helpful information, Thomas. Thank you so much. Someone in the chat has asked if you could just repeat that formula again that they supposedly use to figure out your loan amount. That would be really helpful.
So basically, explain it to me is the formula again is your gross revenues for the 12 months ended January 31st of 2020, and less my cost of goods sold, and so, or my cost of services being a professional practice, if you will. So the difference is what we call gross profit. So that's my gross profit for a 12-month period. She then divided it by 2. And the premise for the divide by 2 is to fund me for the next 6 months with the idea that this crisis will perpetuate for approximately 6 months. And so that's the backdrop or design to the division by 2.
Oh, that's excellent. Thank you very much. I know we're going to lose Melanie soon, and there's a request to go back and discuss the New Jersey EDA loan opening on April 13th. So Melanie, can you just talk about that briefly before I know you have to hop?
Sure. Is there a question that they have, or?
I think if you could just give the broad outlines, that would be helpful.
Okay. Sure. All right, so let's go to the EDA loan. Okay, so the loan program, it's $10 million is the initial wave. It is for a business that has $5 million or less of annual revenue. You have to have a physical commercial location in New Jersey. You must be at least 1 year in existence. Tax clearance must be good with the Department of Labor. A minimum credit score of 600 or better. And you actually are eligible for 100 million, isn't that nice? 100,000 working capital for up to 10 years for businesses with 5 million or less in revenue. With a percentage is 0 in the first 1 to 5 years, and the interest is 1 to 3% for years 6 to 10.
Excellent. Thank you very much. We have a question about if we show an annual deficit for the period, does that automatically disqualify us for a loan? Thomas, maybe you can talk to this, but my understanding is that it does not, because what this is designed for, again, it's the Paycheck Protection Program. So your payroll amount is more important in this case, although you do have to show that you've been in business. Thomas, is that your understanding as well?
Okay, so I'll just jump in. So there is a EDA hotline number, which I want to give everyone, that if you have a specific question like this, you can call the hotline. And their hotline number is 844-965-1125. That's 844-965-1125. So when you get into specific questions like that about the application and about your eligibility, you can certainly call the hotline and they can answer that.
That's super helpful. Thank you so very much, Melanie. I really appreciate it. Jon, we have a question about nonprofits. If the calculation for payroll or payroll and for loan amount might be the same. I haven't seen anything saying that it would be different. What is your understanding of that?
Is that question to me, Tom?
Oh, no, that was to Jon. I'm sorry, Jon Schnur. I should have, although if you know the answer, that's awesome.
There's no way of distinguishing between profit and nonprofit.
Excellent. So if you're running a nonprofit, you should be thinking about this kind of similarly to if you're running a for-profit business.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that. Say that again?
Profit, you should be thinking about this similarly as if you are a profit. Yes?
All the language from the get-go, all this launch was not-for-profit and profit are all in this together. They're treating them all as one. So yeah, no, I'm also applying for not-for-profits with the EIDL and the PPP myself for clients.
Excellent. That's great.
Now,
Do you-
one thing on the EIDL, everybody needs to keep in mind one thing, because since I signed all the loan documents, one thing that I want everybody to fully understand is the EIDL is for working capital. Think about it as working capital, and PPP is to help you with regard to your employee base and your payroll cost. So so they're two different funding sources. They're completely different, and the EIDL is unique in and of itself, and the funding or the loan amount, if you will, forgetting about the option that it may be forgivable because we actually don't know that, but that gives you needed funds that are not dedicated for any one thing, where the PPP is primarily dedicated, and for it to be forgivable, as you pointed out earlier, is for primarily for you keeping your payroll, your people on board.
So how do we think about that, given that self-employed people who may even be working from home and not have office expenses are eligible for both programs? How should they be thinking about payroll in that context and working capital in that context?
You know what? I actually have not done it, the PPP for myself.
Mm-hmm.
I've been so preoccupied with the EIDL for
Right.
clients.
And we don't have guidance for that for self-employed.
And I haven't
yet
thought that
anyway.
one out because
Yeah.
that thought that you just shared is the most appropriate, because I keep thinking of myself, being self-employed, I'm thinking of myself, how is that going to translate on an application being just, if you will, me, which is your point. I'm not sure. I haven't pursued it, and I haven't done the research on the self-employed. It's my understanding self-employed doesn't launch until April 10th.
Right.
People this morning are telling me it's available now for everybody.
Is that correct, do you think? My understanding was it was yours. It's not available until the 10th, and we don't have guidance from Treasury on how it's supposed to work anyways.
Yeah, all I'm hearing is I've been speaking to people all weekend who've been trying to apply. Some of my clients who have Bank of America or PNC Bank,
Mm-hmm.
it was accessible to them. I've heard easy stories and I've heard nightmares in which it took one client, has about 200 employees, it took him 8 hours to process it.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, because the system does not allow you to save your file, and the system kept crashing. He had to go back in more than 20 times and restart it.
Oh my gosh. Okay, a word of caution, I guess, to everyone. Someone has asked, Tom, what were the dates you said were used to determine gross profits?
Okay, again, from February 1st of 2019 through January 31st of 2020. So here's some advice. If you don't have those numbers accessible to you, because all you've been worrying about is, if you will, your 2019 numbers for your tax preparation and what have you, take your tax preparation numbers and maybe just tweak them up or down a little bit based on what you think you did for January 2020 versus January 2019. I think that's your best bet, or simply use your 2019 numbers because those are the most accurate and the ones that you're most comfortable in sharing.
The other thing, this question has come up a couple of times in the chat. Thomas, maybe you know the answer. I frankly do not. Can business owners claim unemployment? I believe they cannot.
Yeah, I've seen that too, but I don't know how you can do unemployment in the PPP simultaneously.
Right.
So I'm sort of, you know, it's almost more intellectual. You're trying to think to yourself, wait a minute, can I actually do two of these?
Yeah.
I don't know that answer.
Yeah. And I would also, you know, Tom and I are saying we don't know the answers to these. The other thing I have to say is that what the answer was a week ago is sometimes not what the answer was today. I mean, the bill was passed saying things like no longer than 10 years or no more than 4% interest. And then guidance comes out periodically to say exactly what those numbers are going to be. Like we say, faith-based institutions were just included over the weekend. So please do everything you can to, you know, to research it and stay up to date. The Twitter handle actually of the SBA administrator, it's like SBA Carranza, is actually really helpful. But it is really difficult to stay up to speed on this. And this is like part of the reason that Carley wanted to put this together. It's part of the reason we're covering it closely at Inc. So just please, you know, the stuff is changing all the time. It's tough to stay on top of. So just please do your best on it. I wanted to ask Jon, before he had a little technical difficulty, about the way that not-for-profits should be thinking about this and how it might be different possibly from for-profits. One of the things I've heard people say about businesses such as restaurants is that what would happen if you could open but your occupancy limit was cut in half so that people could still social distance? Like, how would that change your projections? Which I think is something a lot of people have not contemplated yet. So Jon, what are the things that nonprofits should be thinking about?
Well, I think conceptually it's very similar, but I think that what you raised is a good example that a nonprofit, like a small business, may even plan for a forgivable loan based on a certain amount of money being spent on payroll, because the requirement is that 75%, as you shared, of the money has to be spent on payroll. But things may change. You may have an employee who leaves for whatever reason. You may have a grant that you're currently getting, or you're expecting to get, more likely. That I've seen some foundations actually plan to give a grant that have stopped just before they've given it. So there may be reasons why you have changes that you're not expecting, consistent with what you were saying, sometimes related to foundation grants or whatever else. In that case, the key is the same, which is don't spend. The 75% threshold is very important. So don't spend as you go more than 75% of your resources on the, don't spend more than 25% of your resources on non-payroll costs, because if you do, you may be assuming you're going to catch up that over time, but you may not. So I would just monitor your expenses and never spend more than 25% of expenses at any one time on your non-payroll expenses if you're a nonprofit.
Yeah. And I just want to repeat that as far as we know, 1099, so independent contractors and self-employed people will be able to begin applying for this on Friday of this week. So if you have a good relationship with the banker, now is the time to get in touch with them and see what they need you to do, because we are anticipating it's going to be another scramble. I would like to thank everyone for participating today. Hopefully we got some good information out to the business community in Montclair. Carley has generously offered to kind of keep these going on Monday so that we can answer questions. She can get the right people on the line to help folks. So I want to say thank you to her and to everybody, and to throw it back to Carley.
Hi, everybody. Thank you, Kimberly. So we are over time. I know we had blocked this until about 11:15 if folks needed. I just want to recap a couple of things that were said. So thank you to Melanie, thank you to Kimberly, and also Jen, Tom, and Jon for giving us all of this really valuable information. As I mentioned, we will curate it and push it out over email again. I just wanted to make note that multiple chambers of commerces in New Jersey are helping business owners with their applications. The African American Chamber, the Hispanic Chamber, the Veterans Chamber, and also Rising Tide Capital are helping with, in addition to sort of the chat bots available through EDA and the others that Melanie mentioned. You can go directly to one of these chambers if you need a little extra hand-holding with the application process. But we will make sure to put together everything that's been mentioned today in follow-up. So when all of you registered for this Zoom via the Montclair Center bid, there was actually a field in the registration that talked about what your top concern or business issue was right now. And so we'll be continuing to ask that, but also looking to that information to help stand up useful webinars moving forward. And so next Monday, the 13th, we've been talking about putting something on around rent relief. And the thought there would be, no one has a silver bullet. There's been a lot of talk around residential rent relief, especially in the city, but not necessarily commercial rent relief. And so because I think this technology actually worked fairly well, we'd like to make that one a bit more of an open forum where we can share ideas and potential proposals. So watch for that and register for that through the Montclair Center bid, if you would. But thanks so much for being with us today, and we'll make sure to follow up with you. Stay well, the sun is out, and we will see you from a distance around Montclair. Thanks, everybody.